Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us today. We are very excited to have you here as we delve into the often heard about but seldom understood world of challenger brands. Yes, everyone, we've got in the studio, we've got live, where we'll be talking about the underdogs, the disruptors, the innovators, the early stage companies that are really choosing to take on the titans of their industries. Some famous examples, which everyone should know, is why Airbnb take on hospitality, and you famously have Salesforce with their end of software campaign, as they really brought SaaS to the forefront of the world. And we're going to get into a few more examples today as well. Joining me up here, we have three experienced industry veterans that have either invested in or created their own challenger brands. I'll say your names really quickly, and I'll let you kind of each introduce yourselves, because I think you probably know yourselves better than I know you. So we have Notion Capital's Itxaso del Palacio. Welcome, Itxaso. We have YuLife's Jonathan Rumer, and we have WillU Financial Group's Craig Copeland. Would you guys each mind going one by one and introducing yourself to the audience?
Cool, I can start. Hi, my name is Itxaso, and I'm a general partner at Notion Capital. We are a venture capital firm based in London, focused on B2B software, investing across Europe, mainly in Series A. We can go a little bit earlier and later. Some of the companies in our portfolio include YuLife, GoCarless, Paddle, Kobe, and many other international brands that you might have heard of. Is that okay?
Absolutely perfect. Jonathan.
Right. I got to start by saying I'm very disappointed that you didn't introduce me. I thought we knew each other better than that. We've met once. Come on. My name is Jonathan Rumer. I'm one of the co-founders of YuLife. We are a global financial services brand on a mission to inspire millions of people to live their best lives. We focus on the group risk and health market and reward and inspire people for looking after their well-being every day.
Amazing. Hi, everyone. Some of you have met, some of you I haven't. I'm Craig. I'm one of the co-founders, the group CEO of WillU Financial Group. The business is 7 years old. I guess we've been on a bit of a journey. We've sort of pivoted multiple times within our sort of growth over the last 7 years. Now we are a SME consolidator for financial services. So we, as an organization, tried to bring everything together to make it as easy as possible for organizations to manage financial services in one place.
Perfect. And I guess I'll round it out here. Those of you that I have not had the pleasure of meeting before, my name is Lieber. I lead Snowflake's startup program for EMEA. Had the good fortune of being since Snowflake since our stealth days in 2014, and got to experience and participate in taking on some of the largest companies on earth, like Google, Microsoft, Amazon. I guess a challenge which I don't think will ever be done. But most importantly, I get the honor of hosting today's panel. Before we go ahead and jump into the main portion, just want to take the opportunity to set the scene a little bit. So our aim with this panel is that we want to provide everyone tuning in really with a clear understanding around what is a challenger brand, its attributes, what are some good examples that we're seeing today in the market, and also be able to provide you with some actionable advice that you can take back, discuss with your team, and see if becoming a challenger brand or adopting some of its attributes are right for you. All right, so now that everyone knows who you are, they know why they're here, most importantly, let's go ahead and get into it. And Itxaso, I'm going to start off with yourself, if that's okay.
Yeah.
You speak with hundreds, maybe thousands of startups a year. Kind of going back to setting the scene, in your view, how would you define what is a challenger brand?
Yeah, so we speak to a lot of companies when they come to pitch to us, and not all of them, in fact, are building challenger brands. I'll probably say that a challenger brand is linked to a mindset and an idea of embracing disruption. I would probably say is trying to change the way things are done in certain industry. So changing the code that everybody uses in a certain industry. I think traditionally or for a long time, we linked challenger brands with consumer businesses, probably maybe because they were closer to us, right? So you mentioned Airbnb when we were in your introduction, and I do think there are some other challenger brands out there where you can think of a Revolut, so you can think of an Uber, maybe. And those are very well-known examples. But definitely there are a lot of challenger brands in the B2B space too. So I invest in B2B software. And I don't know if I need to go deep on the case of YuLife, but that's a very good example. It's a very traditional, well-established industry. We assume everybody in a business gets life insurance, and let's be clear, you don't get to know that you have it until you die. So you never get to know you have it. In fact,
you have to enjoy it.
Exactly. You can't enjoy it. So here you go. You have a product now that in fact makes it valuable for employees and gives employees the ability to improve their health and their well-being and to have a better lifestyle through the app, right? Snowflake is another example. In fact, I would probably say, I'm not sure if you guys remember driving in the Bay Area in 2015, 16, and all this billboard with the big jokes about that our housing, where you're like, okay, I didn't think that our housing was anything funny, but they made it funny. They made it really something that people could understand and could think, okay, I think I can get to those products. So I think it's a mindset. It's a disruption. It's being a little bit of a rebel in the room, I would probably say.
Perfect. Thank you. And yeah, that was my commute every day. And my favorite billboard was Sequelin Grill and Chillin'. And we got a lot of inbound leads. I don't think many were qualified. It was mainly people asking for T-shirts for their partners. But the point is to get your brand out there.
Mm-hmm.
Then same question, well, different question, but same one for you both. When you research a challenger brand, different types come up. You've got technologist, brand, mission, specialist, next generation. What type of challenger brand would you say your firms are, or would you say they're a mix?
I think for us, we're a bit of a mix, predominantly with mission and brand. Before I get into that, though, there's one thing which I think bugs me quite a lot within the startup industry, and I'm sure Itxaso will have seen this a million times, is I think too many startups, especially when they're trying to be a challenger startup, define themselves by what they're not, or by what they're against, or what they're trying to disrupt or destroy. And I really don't think there is so much need for the negativity. I think there's so much room for us to focus on the positives and what we're trying to achieve. And for us, when I gave my intro, the very first thing I said is we're on a mission to inspire people to live their best lives, because we are a very mission-driven business. So the mission is the way that we look at things. It's the way we make decisions. It's how we build our products. It's the way we interact with people. But very important as well is the brand, because that's the relationship that we have with our customers and our members. And we've used a lot of technology to create a brand that is creating a positive emotional connection between people and their well-being, and people and their finance and their insurance, which is not something historically that's happened. So for us, it's about the mission and creating a relationship through the brand with our customers.
Perfect. Beck?
It wasn't probably a question or something we sort of considered right at the outset, if I'm honest. Our business, as I mentioned also in my intro, that we really changed the way we went with the business from the outset. We really sort of pivoted and diverted from where we were as initial brand. And I guess really what was apparent for us, there was a huge gap in the market. And we've actually been quite blinkered in around what's in the market. So a lot of people come to me and speak about other brokers in the space or other people, and we sort of very much the same as YuLife, I believe. I think that's why we probably work so closely together, is that we also are on a bit of a mission that we know that what we can do and what we can change in the financial services space, it's quite dated. There's a lot of aspects of the market that need modernizing. And a great thing, I think my father-in-law said to me probably 5 or 6 years ago, you don't have to reinvent the wheel, just do it better than somebody else. And, you don't have to create something that's brand new, just do it much better than what somebody else is doing it. And we've sort of lived and breathed that throughout the organization. And, I guess the same is that we have aspects of all of it. I think you create this brand and you go on that journey. But for us, it's always been very much like stay in our lane, know the impact that we want to make, and continue to sort of keep that focus in mind.
So you more or less kind of naturally fell into it a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we were speaking just before. I mean, when we founded the business, we were stockbrokers looking after private clients. We probably couldn't be any further at the other end now if we tried. So, but I guess that's survival, and then just finding that gap in the market. We would never have even, believed we would be where we are now, when we wrote the business plan in day one.
You didn't write challenger brand at the top of it.
Absolutely not.
So my next question's for each of you. Are there some good examples of challenger brands that you're seeing in the market, I guess, given particularly, how they've actually gone to market and found their customers? And no particular order.
Sure. For me, I think a company that's really stood out for me that I've watched over the last 2 years is HubSpot as a company. I think there's two specific things I think that they did exceptionally well. Number one was their content marketing. I think the content marketing that they put out there was super helpful for the people who were using the platform. So when we were first getting going and you go online, it's like, well, I have to send a cold email now for the first time ever. What on earth do I do? And then you would Google it. And the very first thing that would come up was, here's how you send cold emails. Here's the sequence. So they gave so much value through their content marketing. And I think aligned to that, they had a fantastic acquisition strategy where it was free up front. And by the time you realized, actually, I need these other features, you were so embedded in the product, you could not dream of going anywhere else. So I think that they did exceptionally well as they scaled.
Itxaso, Craig?
Yeah, I can go. We're here in London, in East London, and I think everybody can remember when Wise was created, TransferWise.
Mm-hmm.
And basically they were trying to disrupt international money, sending money internationally, brands like Western Union, and a very, very outdated market. I don't know if you guys remember, but they showed up 50 people. I'm not sure if you were in London at the time.
I was an American in London 2017. It was my saving grace, was moving money between TransferWise.
I tell you, 50 people showed up completely naked in the London Stock Exchange, basically showing that Wise was transparent. And they wanted to show what were the fees they were charging. And so they basically suddenly 50 people showed up there in the middle of the day when people were trading. So it's definitely it was a big impact and trying to create that brand. And they were in every newspaper in the UK, as you can imagine.
Well, I mentioned Salesforce's end of software campaign, and they had a physical protest, I think it was San Francisco, with end of software signs. And people were very confused what they were protesting, but it was kind of the guerrilla marketing aspect of it.
Yeah.
I guess for me, you've already mentioned them, but Revolut is a brand that we've sort of followed quite closely. Wise was another one. I guess in the sort of active place, Gymshark has obviously been an amazing brand. And then also, before we'd even met YuLife, Vitality and YuLife were two sort of brands that we sort of in the same sector we did look at. And I guess it's really important now is that we work with over 600 businesses, and I believe that it's really important now that we are, as appealing we can be to the owners, directors, finance directors, HR, C-suite is really important. The product also has to resonate with the employees. There has to be something that's tangible there because, we know that there's 600 businesses, but there's 9,000 employees. And ultimately, things have changed. The gamification piece of organizations has really changed, and people want engagement, they want to bring their staff together. And I think all of these brands have that in common. As a challenger brand, where would you normally come to an office and there was pizzas on a Friday and all those things that sort of bring the team together, I think for me is super important. And you see all of those brands doing those things, and there's clearly some leaders in the space that do it really, really well. And I think as long as you've got your own individuality around that as well, it's really, really important.
And except for HubSpot, I've used all of those. And Vitality was actually how I got my first Apple Watch, because we used it in London when we got here, and the gamification worked.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe our next question, along the lines of maybe some of those companies, would you say that being a challenger brand is as much about culture and mindset as it is about actually having a truly disruptive technology? Or can you not have a technology that's truly that disruptive, but have a great kind of culture and mindset?
I'm happy to go. Yeah. I think everybody in the business, it starts with culture for sure. I mean, I think everybody has to believe in the business and the growth and where it's going to go. I think, when you're interviewing or you're seeing and trying to, bring in new team members to the organization, they have to believe the journey that they're going to go on. We've been lucky enough to take some incredible people from some large organizations just because they see the vision. They come in the office, they feel something that they've never have felt before, maybe in a larger organization. So absolutely, I think number one is that you have to build that internally first. For me, there's, people have to believe it and understand it. And when they speak to their clients or whatever that stage of the journey is, they have to buy into that immediately.
Great. And maybe Jonathan?
Yeah, so I think a slightly less a state of mind, but more of a state of heart. I think it's about what you believe and what you feel. And when you are a startup, a scale-up, challenger brand or not, things are hard. Things go well, things go badly. And ultimately, it's about your resilience and your passion and your drive and your desire to do it. And I think there's two main emotions that really drive it forward. And they're two sides of the same coin. The one is injustice. I see an injustice in the world. There's something that's not right. I am going to fix it no matter what. And we will pull the technology there. We will find ways of doing it. And the flip side of that is the desire to improve things, which is, it's not necessarily an injustice in the world, but things could be so much better. And I am going to take personal responsibility for making it happen. So I think it's more that state of heart and desire, and then everything else follows from there.
Wonderful.
I definitely think there needs to be something else apart from the state of heart, because I do think I invested in. I see a lot of companies that I sit on boards. I mean, I can give you an example. A company I invested in, it's called Onfido. They just sold the company, and it was a pretty good exit. And the founders created the business for identity verification. Think of having the opportunity to give a bank account to anybody who is in the middle of nowhere in India, and they only have their phone, and they are able to authenticate them. The first time I got in their offices, Hussein spent 10 minutes telling me about their values. That's it. That's our state of heart. Now, they are not a challenger brand. Mm-hmm. They are trying to improve the way things are done. They are challenging with a product. They are challenging with a process. But it is not only the state of mind. I think there are some actions that need to be taken after that. And you know what I mean? I think it comes with that. I mean, it's about communicating that out and using that, in fact, almost as a go-to-market strategy. Let's put it this way.
So you're going to say they're a little bit almost of a technologist or next generation platform in terms of a challenger brand aspect.
Yeah.
Okay. So we've done a few group questions. Going to get back to singling people out. Mm-hmm. Jonathan, going to go to you. So as you shared, you're co-founder of YuLife, head of customer success, and really with challenger brands, they aim to delight their customers. Historically, the ones that have been neglected by competitors. How would you say YuLife approaches thinking about the customer?
Yeah, thank you. This is something I think about every day, multiple times a day over the last few years. And for us, the journey has evolved quite a lot over the last few years. I think when we started, it was very much just do things that don't scale, just do literally everything and anything we can for our customers to make sure that we understand what works and what doesn't. And over time, you can start to then scale that back to the things that you are seeing working. I think for us particularly, if I look for practical advice and practical things that changed, it is kind of in the naming of two of our customer teams. One, we have a customer success team, and we have the customer happiness team. So in the beginning, it's like surprise and delight. Have those moments that matter, create the magic. But that's not necessarily sustainable, and it's also not necessarily a great business outcome for everyone involved. So the customer success team went from looking at, okay, how do we just delight our customers to how do we make our customers successful? Because if we can make our customers successful, then we go from being a soft benefit to something that's actually integral in their success, and therefore they're not going to leave and they want to stay. So we focus on how do we make customers successful. A specific example of that is in the beginning when we were doing success plans with companies, we'd say, what does success mean? It's a high download rate for the app or a high monthly active user. It was great for us, but that doesn't necessarily make the customer successful. So now we go through a much more in-depth process of understanding their pains, which our sales team does an incredible job of using Medic to understand what can we actually solve for the company. And then we start from there and find ways that YuLife can address those things. We then have the customer happiness team, which is responsible for creating happiness. So whenever someone messages into the app or to the platform, they have a question, they have a problem, something's not right, that team just gets on it and makes people happy. So between those two teams, we focus on success and happiness. And yeah, thankfully it's working really well.
And I think you did touch on a really important point, which you see in a lot of software companies where there's an issue popping up over and over, that's not scale. And if you address it one by one, that's not scale. But looking at the root problem of what's actually occurring and figuring out how you could improve that within the product, that's how you actually create scale and eliminate those one-off issues, what's create extra TCO, time consumption. It's not the most valuable work that someone on your team can be doing.
Yeah, I think the best way to actually get that done is to make an engineer responsible for fixing it the first few times. Because as soon as you've got someone who has the ability to build and they're responsible for fixing it, and the first time it comes, they fix it. The second time they fix it. By the third time it comes, and I go, screw this, I'm just building something to fix this from scratch. And things get solved very quickly from that perspective.
And Craig, for yourself, you've founded WillU Financial Group. What are some of the key challenges that you've experienced trying to shake up? I can't think of maybe a more legacy industry than financial services.
I think the first part always is building something that people trust. That so many people are used to just using big brands. Time and time again, you find that period of trying to break down somebody to have that first initial conversation. You mentioned, Jonathan, about sending out that first email. How do you send out a cold market email? We've been lucky as a business. We've done no marketing. We've done, we've not had to sort of cold call a single client.
It's a nice luxury.
Yeah. And obviously that takes a little bit longer to grow in some aspects, but we've been lucky in that the word of mouth and what we've created around, of the brand and the networking and the people we go and see, really sort of emphasizes that, and then that grows. I guess that always is a challenge of brand is money, right? You try and grow a business from the bottom without, raising any investment, is always really, really difficult. And people, you have to find people that are so wedded to the brand and the growth for the next 5, 10, 15 years. That there's going to be some churn there. You hopefully that's going to stay at a minimum. But we've really, really focused on the first core 15, 20 people that we hope those people will be with the business for the next or foreseeable future. And then that's that balancing act, right? You need the good people, but you don't have the money. And I think that's the constant battle and that you're always facing as much as you grow. And I usually have about an idea a week. So when I go to the boys or the team and say that I've got another idea, they're usually putting their hair out that there's something else that we need money or investment for. So
your business partner,
they're shaking. So yeah, I guess from our side, the ideas are constantly flowing. How we can evolve it, how we can make it better. And it's always going to be that juggle. I think that you're always going to face, however much money or however many ideas you have, you're always going to find a way to spend it to make the product better.
And you've somewhat answered one of my future questions for you, so I won't repeat that one, but I will kind of ask you a slightly curveball one here. What would be your advice for those founders out there that plan on bootstrapping their startups? That's no easy feat by any means. And to see a company that's been doing it successfully is almost a unicorn within itself.
Yeah, I guess you just have to live and breathe it every day. I mean, I'm quite obsessive with things in that, we know what we need to do to keep the lights on every month as a minimum. And we're quite lucky in our businesses that we have sort of two sides. We have a recurring revenue model, which there's sort of four aspects of the business that is a recurring revenue. And then we have two transactional sides. And we've been lucky enough to use those two transactional businesses, one being the international payment side, of which we touched on a couple of brands, i.e. sort of Wise, Revoluts in the world, which, thankfully we use a transactional business for us, which helps us grow. Do I think we'd have been able to bootstrap the business as a recurring revenue model? Absolutely not. I think that is, it's hard. You building something from a recurring revenue model is really difficult, which we found in the early stages in that when we just had the asset management business, it was looking after, private client investment advice, which we still very much have. You can have some huge wins, but actually it doesn't sort of provide enough capital to grow or, obtain talent or, move the business forward. So I think personally is that you obviously need to stay in your lane and keep along a line where you want to go. But I think you need wins and you need ways in which cash can come into the business. And if you don't have that, it's almost impossible. So we were quite lucky in that a couple of the initial stage businesses that we built, and we built these businesses, a new business every year. Thankfully, we haven't got to add a new service or division. Thankfully, now I think we're in a really, really good place. We don't need to add anything else. We've sort of covered off everything we want to for now for an SME, where we really add value. But the transactional piece for us was so important. To bootstrap it, you need to have cash coming in, else you just can't survive.
And I think you can almost translate to cash coming in. You did mention it in the middle of it, but I think people probably underestimate, the power of morale in getting that win. And if you're not getting wins, it's hard to excite the employees to motivate them.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, we all have targets to hit, and last thing we want to be doing is constantly banging them to the team constantly every month. We know we're not hitting target. You know, we need to be here. We, you know, and eventually, it just everyone gets to burnout, right?
Yeah.
So we everyone's very much in our office. We're still relatively small in that, so that culture and everybody knows what's going on, and you know, the team events still happen every quarter. You know, so everyone is embedded and understands the business. They need to, like, it's such an important stage. But we're not under anywhere near as much pressure as, you know, that we could be.
Yeah.
Just because of that transactional piece of the business, which, you know, luckily everyone is so vision, you know, everyone's got the same vision and drive in the business that knows what we need to achieve.
Thank you. And I know that was a curveball question, so I appreciate you expanding on it. And Itxaso, we're going to go to you. When you're being pitched by a startup that, you know, maybe it looks like, feels like, smells like a challenger brand, what does that go-to-market conversation look like? And what do you think maybe most startups misunderstand about trying to create a challenger brand?
That's a good question, in fact, because some of the startups that come to pitch to us, we think they will be more successful if they build a challenger brand and they have that mindset, and they don't come with that mindset. Yeah. And so we ask them a lot about the brand. What about the brand? How are you thinking about it? And I was trying to think about, when do I ask those questions? And so thinking of examples. And I think, and I'm not really sure, I can't say this 100%, but most of the companies that I could come across and think about that building a challenger brand will help them, were operating in red oceans, in very crowded market, in places where the product was already out there. So there was no education to be done to the market. So they were coming in with a very strong message, but people knew already what were we talking about. So they could say only half of the message, and still people will understand what are we talking about. And so I have companies that came to us and they were not thinking about building a challenger brand around it. They had a pretty conventional, let's say, go-to-market strategy, and outbound content marketing, whatever you do, partnerships, but they were not thinking about the brand as a way to build that community and to stand out of the rest of the businesses. And so that's something that we really talked about. And if there are two options, right? The founders really get it, and then they go for it. I'm a big believer of challenger brands because I think people relate to them and get attached to them, and people want to experience what are they telling them about, right? Because a lot is about what's the experience you are giving to your customers or your users, right? I'm a big believer, and if kind of they don't get it, I can't get excited with the business. Yeah. Let's put it this way, right? It's like there is a misunderstanding on what do we need to do to make this business successful. And
if you look at the stats, you know, most founding teams are technical. And, you know, I gave Craig a curveball. I'll ask you a curveball question as well. When you're very passionate about challenger brands, do you think proposing a challenger brand to these technical founders, is that scary for them sometimes? Because, you know, a lot of times, you know, they know the technology platform, but maybe they're not as marketing minded. And I feel like when you take a challenger brand, that's like putting marketing on steroids a little bit from an aggressiveness standpoint.
That's an interesting question. I invested in companies. So prior to Notion, I ran Microsoft Ventures in Europe. So I did a lot of cloud developer tools and a lot of developer first type of solutions. And to be honest, the reality is that many of those developers have a phenomenal sense of humor, like really incredible sense of humor. And they have their own way to communicate with their own audience. So I do think they get it. They get it, and they communicate in a different way in their own language, their own brand. But I think it's absolutely possible. And yeah, we talk about it. It's a mindset. It's not branding. It's about a mindset, right?
That's almost using your strength as strength.
Yeah. I'm just laughing because I'm sitting on a board of a developer tool, and the founder he has an amazing sense of humor, and I love that about him, to be honest, and he's very, very technical. So it's
well, when I first got to London, I wasn't planning on saying this, but I did improv. And the most funny jokes were by the engineers who were coming from work because they just thought on a different level outside of someone else. And so that's why when you said that, it absolutely resonated with me because I'd hear they say something funny, everyone would crack up, laugh, and I would say, wow, I would never have thought of that, which can translate to marketing and messaging.
Exactly, correct.
So just thought I'd say that. Jonathan, we'll go back to you. What is one of the key things that YuLife did in its early stages to have success in the fintech space? Because you guys acquired some pretty big brands early on, Tesco being one of them.
Yeah, I think there's two aspects to it. So number one, on the customer side, it was very much, as I mentioned earlier, about doing things that don't scale. It was just going above and beyond to what people would normally expect. And if I think about a journey we had with a company like Co-op, for example, when we were looking at the rollout, we literally went in the middle of the night to their warehouses across the country to do activation campaigns and to be there and to meet the staff and to work with them and to encourage it. And it was something that from our perspective was incredibly fun. It wasn't always fun, just going to these random spots just outside of Glasgow at 3 a.m, but it was fun. And it was an incredibly important thing to do. I think also right at the beginning, working with those bigger companies, it takes a long time to build trust. So the way that we were able to build trust was by really digging in to understand them as a business and to show how would be able to affect their pains or their strategy. Because ultimately that's what it came down to. Those big businesses are not early adopters. We found a lot of amazing early adopters who were much smaller businesses. And, they came along because it was cool and it was new and it was interesting and they, didn't have much to lose. But the big businesses, they don't take a chance too easily on early stage businesses. So you have to build the trust with them. You have to demonstrate that you can actually solve what you're going to do. You have to have the heart, but you have to have the tech to back it up, because you can speak as much as you want, but if you don't deliver, ultimately customers will judge you very quickly. Build trust and then deliver on it.
It's kind of that one step at a time approach.
Yeah, and I think, if I reflect very specifically, right at the beginning, we're talking about marketing and positioning. When we first went out to market, we went out with a message of we're this brand new well-being insurance, this holistic insurance that includes everything, and it's something you've never seen before. And it sounded incredible and looked beautiful on paper, but no one understood what the hell we were talking about.
It's holistic.
This sounds really nice. I don't have budget for this, and it doesn't, I'm just confused. And then we brought in some incredible people like Keith and Lauren, and we were able to simplify the message to be, we are the best group risk provider in the world. Because I know, oh, wow, I understand that. I've already got a budget for that. You're going to be better than what you currently I've got. Well, that makes it a hell of a lot easier for me to buy. So the simplification of the message actually made a huge difference as well.
Great. And Itxaso, go back to yourself. If anyone else wants to chime in on this question, you're welcome to. Just say everyone's done great on time. So thank you. Itxaso, what would you say is maybe the difference between being a category creator and being a challenger brand? Or do you think there's a difference between the two, or they're mutually exclusive?
Definitely they are different.
Mm-hmm.
They are very different because being I mentioned before that I think challenger brands, or at least examples I could think of, most of them are operating in red oceans, and being a category creator, it's almost the opposite. Let's put it this way. You are almost creating a new market with a new paradigm, a new product, right, on the market. I can give you some examples. I mean, we have companies in the portfolio like Bubble, which is machine translation with a human in the loop. So think of a product that you can use to just simplify your customer service teams to just use one single language and to be able to serve anybody around the world in any language, just because of the machine translation, and a human in the loop, which makes it almost 100% correct on the translation, right? So that's a new product category. You go to customers, it's not like YuLife where you go, we have a budget for this. You go to them and they're like, oh, we have a budget for these 100 people that we were employing in 50 different countries. We can put these people all together in the same place and basically only speak one single language, and they don't need to be distributing the emails depending on where they come. Think of companies like Booking.com or Airbnb, where they get emails in any language from all over the world, right? And they need to have a service desks everywhere. So that's a new product category, and it's a completely different thing than a challenger brand. So in fact, they need to educate the market.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of education to be done to understand how would they use the product, in fact. So I do think they are very, very different from each other. I do think companies, let me give you another example, Palacio, in our portfolio too, which is a solution for billing software. When they started, they thought, okay, we are going to be product-led growth. If anybody wants to sell software, they come to us, they onboard, and they can start billing software to anybody that they sell software to. But this was so early in the market that people couldn't even understand what Palacio was doing. Today, we understand what that is for, but there was a lot of education to be done. So they moved from sales-led to now much more product-led growth. People have started to go to their website and, in fact, download it. And now there are 3 or 4 other competitors, and they are trying to build a challenger brand on top of that. So they are not exclusive. They don't necessarily need to go together. They can go together. So I think those are a couple of examples where you can see how they can operate with each other, I guess, right?
Yeah, and I think you touched on one of the important points, but I guess one of the differences being an education sale.
Yeah.
And if I do think back to Snowflake's early days, we were the first to separate storage and compute, natively ingest semi-structured data. That was a huge differentiator for us, but people didn't necessarily know what it meant. So we had to spend a lot of time educating them on really what does a cloud data warehouse truly mean, and what does this mean for your business, or otherwise the door was already shut.
Yeah.
So that's a really important aspect.
Sorry, just to jump in on that, I guess we've done exactly that in terms of we've just been sales led all the way through the process. We found a product that people need or already have, exactly like YuLife have. But what we sort of started realizing is the trust was built within the organization, is that they were asking us for more things. So they may be a life and a health client, but we realized they manufacture in Indonesia and they've got a massive FX requirement. So then that was when that part of the business were then bolted on, or vice versa, where, the last piece of the puzzle that we put in is workplace pensions. When we started WillU, which is now being rebranded WillU Invest and part of the group, if someone had asked us, would we be looking after workplace pensions at the outset, we said, absolutely not. We've got no control over it. The margins are super small. It's probably troublesome, blah, blah, blah. So what essentially then happened is in December 2022, we were sat in the office, and in December that month, I got asked 5 times to do workplace pensions. I was like, here we go again. Like we need to go again. We need to start a new business. We need to be this arm of the business that then encompasses. And we may go sit with a business that may need 1 or 2 services, but essentially over time, without even trying, they take 5, because for an SME, and I'm talking probably between sort of 5 and 350 employees, they don't always have, an internal HR function, internal, for FD, or if they do, then it's they're concentrated on what they're doing within the business. We then realized, and go back into the question, is that actually nobody does what we do. So in line with what you did, that a couple of people or a few people do a few bits of what we do. But the challenger brand piece has come from, actually, we've built some tech that overlays it, really simple, but just a wallet functionality that everybody can see their information in one place, and just solves a massive problem for the FD and the HR department, so that they don't have to go out to market every single year, spend time on pointless tasks that they don't need to. And all of a sudden, it morphed into that service-led into then a challenger brand, exactly like you said, in that it's not always the vision. I think it's just those things happen, and if you find a gap in the market that you can then solve the problem for and then bring it all together, I think so many brands do it that way around. I don't always think it's like, right, I'm going to change the world and then figure out how we do it. It's like, and that, I guess that goes down to the bootstrapping piece, right? In that we've had to do it that way around, but we then realized we were actually onto something really good. And then we then partner with the best brands in that space. We don't need to create something brand new. Like YuLife for us is the best in the market for what they do. Smart pension. We did a whole review of the pension market, and Smart for us were just in another league to anybody else. So for us, it's not always about having to create the underlying product. It's partnering with some of the best brands that we can bring that together to make it easy for an SME so they don't have to do market research on the best product out there.
So you guys are almost, by customer demand, becoming more of a platform, which if you translate that for the startup ecosystem and particularly VC world, they have higher valuations, multiples when you're not just a single tool, but you can do it all and create kind of that single ecosystem, which they can just come to WillU in order to do that.
Yeah.
Anything, Jonathan, or?
Just a memory I had, my first interaction with Snowflake. Wasn't necessarily a positive one, but it wasn't mutual.
Was it cold?
No, not at all. It was purely because we used Tableau for many years as a tool, and I was logging in, and all of a sudden this other pop-up would pop up saying log into Snowflake. I was like, why do I need? I've just logged in. Why do I have to log in? So I phoned up Matt, who looks after all things data in YuLife. I'm like, why are you making my life more difficult? He said, shut up, Jonathan. It makes our data more secure, and it'll let you get better reports. So just damn log in and get on with it. I was like, okay. And that was then the end of the conversation.
And happy customers today.
I believe so, yeah.
I'm getting a signal that we got it. We're going to go to live Q&A in a moment, but if we could keep these, and the last question about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
I think I'll still keep my job as the moderator. So when you find yourself speaking with the founders of challenger brands, quickly, what advice do you see yourself giving the most often?
To me, it's important that founders in general think out of the box. I think doing what everybody else does, it's just not going to make them successful. It's just not going to allow them to build a 100 million business. So just thinking out of the box, I like to be impressed and meet people who are creative. And I think in order to build a challenger brand, you definitely need to do that. But for anything, even if you are not building a challenger brand, you are defining a go-to-market strategy, you got to be creative, because today we are bombarded with so much information, so many products. The market is so competitive that I would probably say, think out of the box. Don't do what other people do, but just do your thing. Yeah, right.
And as we established before, bring the technical team into the marketing meetings.
Exactly.
Jonathan.
Nice. I think it's for all founders, not just challenger brand founders. It comes down to the Simon Sinek why. Why you're here, why you're trying to achieve this. And I mean that on a personal basis, not on a why, what do you want to achieve from a company perspective. It's what do you personally want out of this journey? Where do you want to be in a few years? What do you want to be when you grow up? Which is my favorite question. And then work back from there. And then you will get your answers. And it might be raising funds. It might be bootstrapping. It might be doing something completely different. So just always go back to the why.
Yeah, I think every founder that I've met who's got a really successful business or a challenger brand, they're obsessed. People think these challenger brands and businesses just turn up. They don't. They really don't. I honestly can't say for the last 10 years, for the first 3 years of planning and then the 7 years, it feels like it's been a roller coaster and it's relentless every single day. So I think a lot of people now start a business who think they're going to just change the world of what they do immediately by just, turning up half the time. You can't. You've literally got to live and breathe it every single day, to the point where you are obsessed with it, because that is when I think then the mindset changes around the business for sure.
Perfect. Well, thank you all for answering my barrage of questions. This panel wasn't, just for me. We do have a full audience out there. So we've got a couple questions, which I'll read here. And anyone's feel free to jump in. Is it possible to be a challenger brand in a remote environment? Are businesses fully remote?
I'll be honest, I don't understand the question. I think the remote is the way you work and the way that you run your business, but the challenger brand is the way you present to the world. So I don't think it matters at all where your employees are, whether they're in the office or working from anywhere.
I would just say all I would say is that on a smaller scale, when you're first starting out, I think it's really important that people are together, because I think that's what builds, that momentum and people being together, sharing ideas. But I think as you surpass a certain level, I don't think there's a real requirement for everyone to be together. I think that is embedded in everyone that understands the onboarding process around what the business is. So I think small, I do think it's difficult to be remote for sure. But as you grow, I don't think it really matters.
You definitely need to build practices that allow you to communicate properly to the people who are remote and to embed them in that mindset. It's much more difficult to build a mindset when people are not meeting face to face. I don't think it's impossible. But I do think that my companies, the ones that are working in a space or in 2 or 3 offices rather than completely remotely have better results and are operating better. Now I cannot say that they are not successful practices and successful companies being remote. I can't say that. I think that could be an option. In my experience, it has been easier to embed a mindset in the companies that are co-located, let's say, the employees are co-located.
And what would you say is, I guess, how would you say is kind of I think I'm getting this question roughly right. I guess, how would you define kind of the success, or how would you define whether maybe a customer success team is doing well, increasing customer happiness? Kind of, how do you define success?
I mean, it's super simple. We have hard metrics. We have the retention rates, number one, are customers staying or not. You have then your net retention rates, are they paying you more at renewal or not? Upsell and cross-sell, are they actually buying more from you? Those are all absolutely hard metrics which you have to follow. You then very importantly need to also understand, are they happy? So you can look at things like CSATs and NPS, which both have their pros and cons. But yeah, customer success is very easy to manage from that perspective because you have very hard metrics and you're either hitting them or not. Because ultimately, the biggest feedback you ever get on your product is whether a customer renews or not. It's pretty binary. And then from there, it's like, okay, are they paying more? Are they prepared to pay more? Are you delivering on the value? And that comes out in the pure numbers.
And I know Itxaso did a whole panel on this. But, at what point would you say it's right to create a customer success team? Right at the inception, middle, larger?
I mean, as soon as you have customers.
Yeah.
Or, perhaps a little bit before. I don't think you have to have a formal customer success team on day one, but you have to have the mindset of customers are the lifeblood of this business. And as many new customers as we bring in, that book of customers just grows and grows and grows. And if you have a solid customer success team who's creating value, driving high retention, it makes your new business team's life so much easier because they don't have to refill the leaky bucket every time. So I think the mindset of looking after your customers needs to be there on day one when you start the product, but you don't necessarily have to have the formal team doing it, because in the beginning, it's just about everyone and anyone getting involved and saying, let's look after customers, let's help them. Oh, this started to work, let's formalize this. And when we started, we had one person who looked after the entire customer journey, both the launch and then the ongoing account management. And then eventually we split those out into 2, and then we put customers into different segments. So you grow, but from day one, you have to have the mindset of customer success.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, I've been through the YuLife journey through for the business and for all of our team. And one thing I can say, and what we've adopted, is a lot of the processes that you guys have put in place, because it is phenomenal. And I think we've properly launched the app this year. And there's no shadow of a doubt that this is the most important part: relationship management and customer service. And that relationship's really important. I agree. I think when we were small, when we just brought the business in ourselves, we were that customer success. Like, you make sure that you ring the client every week. Is everything okay? And at the time, you don't even realize you're doing it, right? It's you're just doing it because that's the way to look after a client. Not everybody sometimes realizes that there's so much on the new sale and trying to get that new piece of business that somebody's put into the funnel that they realize that they don't go back to an email to an existing client. Hold on. Getting a new client, acquiring a new client is much harder than keeping and servicing an existing client who's been a client and's got 4 or 5 services. And that's the challenge that we face within the business, is that one division could let down 4 or 5 revenue streams within a business. So it's been inherent for us that we've adopted a lot of the synergies that processes that YuLife have, in that there is a process, and in defining that process from onboarding to customer relationship and then transitioning into customer success and everything else that goes with it is really important. And I think now more than ever that those processes are really, really really key. But again, it goes back to the initial question was earlier, is that you can't have in a bootstrap business 10 people just to look after one client. You sink very quickly. You know, you need to make sure that a lot of people wear multiple hats, and as you grow, you then start finding these roles, and people have a set function. You build them out.
Perfect.
Can I add something to that? Because I think just very specifically, customer success to me has three different goals. One is the onboarding. Second one is the adoption, and the third one is the expansion of those customers, right? With the happiness, the expansion. I do think that over time, and maybe I don't want to mention names, but we know that there are some software the businesses that we buy them and we need so much support to get onboarded that is where people are deployed in the customer success on this onboarding side rather than maybe on the adoption and the expansion. Yeah. I do think I'm a very product-led. I love amazing products. I don't like to talk to salespeople. I wouldn't like to talk to somebody to set up my product. I really hate somebody calling me and selling me something. And I think that's where the market is going. I mean, now business owners are 40-year-old people who want to manage their businesses from their phone. They don't want to talk to anybody. So that onboarding part can be definitely optimized through the product. Okay. And so allowing people more and more to experience the product without having to have a 2-man integration and somebody helping you expanding the product. Now, the adoption, you can definitely help a little bit more with the customer success and definitely the expansion. You can do that. But I do think we tend to throw people into customer success when we have a crappy product, and that's a problem.
Yeah. I can feel the passion.
Yeah.
Well, that was all we had for the customer questions. Thank you, everyone, who submitted. I'm sorry that we probably didn't get to all of them, but if you do have a specific question for one of our panelists, I'm sure they'd be happy if you sent them an email or connected with them on LinkedIn. But just want to say a big thank you, Itxaso, Jonathan, Craig. I know you all have very busy diaries, so appreciate you guys making the time for this. And thank you, everyone in TV, computer land, for stopping with us for the next, the last hour. So thank you.